doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first.
Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of It's Time to Rewind, the podcast trapped in its own time loop right along with the movies we discuss. This season is a serial bomb, and we're looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, and we moved on to Angel Season 5, Episode 19, Time Bomb. Today we're discussing the ninth and final loop in the episode, starting at 34 minutes and 38 seconds with Angel walking down the hallway with Wesley and Spike, and ending at the end of the episode. Joining me today is co-host of the Watchers Diaries, Froggeh. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to have you on. It's been nice to get some other Buffy and Angel podcasters on here.
Yeah, I'm excited. This concept is really interesting and not one that I've seen before, so it's very cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm excuse me. This is the fourth season, and I've covered Groundhog Day loop by loop and some episodes of The Twilight Zone and let's see, Triangle, Time Crimes. Now I'm on to Buffy, and then next season I'm going a little bit, tweaking the format just a little bit, and I'm going with Memento.
Oh, that's going to be a ride.
Yeah. So that should be interesting because I love that movie, and it's not, a typical time loop, but I kind of like to think of it as Leonard, the main character, is kind of trapped in his own personal time loop in that movie.
Yes, that works perfectly.
But we're here today talking about the final scene of Angel Time Bomb. But before we get started into today's loop, I would like to know, what's your history with Buffy and Angel? Where did you start at the beginning, or did you jump in?
Yes. I am old enough that I saw the movie when it first came out in the theaters. I was very excited about having this character that is both a girly girl, and she's also fighting. And when the series came out and it was just a little bit darker and expanded on all that, I was on board for the entire time. So yeah, I'm Buffy fan from the very beginning.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but I can't remember exactly when I started. I think that I did catch at the very least some of Angel whenever it was first airing, because I definitely remember Angel getting canceled, but I can't remember if I had been watching Buffy as well. I mean, I feel like I had to have at least, maybe caught some reruns if some of the earlier seasons were playing while the later seasons were still on, because I definitely did not. I don't remember ever having UPN, because I was like a Star Trek fan, and I went through DS9 and I started watching Voyager, the first couple seasons of Voyager. But I think Voyager got picked up by the UPN station, and that's when I stopped watching it.
Yeah. I've been through all of those weird stations. UPN I watched a lot on. I watched all of the Hercules and Andromeda. I was big into Star Trek too at the time. I was watching Babylon 5. So
yeah, I love Babylon 5.
Yeah, it was a very weird time for television back in the late 90s, and especially different areas had different things.
Yeah, I think some of those were picked up on my local Fox station instead of UPN.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the whole late 90s, or mid to late 90s syndication and WB and UPN and all that stuff was it was really weird.
Yeah, we're constantly talking on our show about how kids today everybody is spoiled with the way television is set up now. There was so much syndication, so many different markets had different things that they carried, and you never knew. Sometimes you would catch something and you wouldn't know what it is, and then you might not even be able to find it again in the next month.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely happened to me. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what happened to me with Voyager, because I think that whatever stations we had, they just didn't carry Voyager. But I think it's time to go into today's loop, and it starts off with the rest of the white screen from Illyria's explosion. And I think it's interesting because this time, instead of following Illyria, since we have been with all of her time jumps, we jump back to Angel, and he's by himself, and it seems like he is suffering from a little bit of what we've been calling the time cramps. And although I suppose it could be just residual, like him shaking off the explosion. And he's here by himself, walking down the hallway with Wesley and Spike on their way to, he thinks, kill Illyria. But as we find out, Wesley has other plans. And I love this hallway conversation because Angel is both behind the curve and ahead of the curve at the exact same time. He's from an earlier point in the timeline, so he missed the conversation that we saw from Wesley and Spike's from their point of view when they were talking about overloading Illyria. But he's ahead of the curve because he witnessed it firsthand, along with Illyria's description of how she killed everybody.
Yeah, I like when you have somebody else that's caught up in a time loop and they end up at a different spot. So like you said, yeah, he's got two different points of view for what's going on.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of that dramatic irony, because he doesn't know he doesn't know everything that Wesley and Spike knows, that they think he should know, but he knows more than they know. And then they go into the octagonal training room, and Angel realizes what's about to happen, and I like how he slothfully repeats to himself, "I slew that white-haired one first." Like, it's weird because Illyria's speech patterns are so weird. And
but yeah, I like how he repeated exactly, he realized exactly the moment that he's come into.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he says that and realizes what's going to happen. Yeah, we have a little guest here for a minute.
A very, very cute little guest. Not me. Cuter than me.
Regular listeners probably have heard her distantly in the background several times. But she's popped in to say hi, or at least to laugh and make cute noises. But yeah, Angel pushes Spike out of the way only to get staked himself. But luckily it's just below his ribcage and not a heart strike. And so it just injures him for a bit. And then before we cut to commercial, and Angel starts trying to talk to Illyria into letting them kill her. So since that's his perspective of what they're trying to do at this point.
You know what, like one of the things that when I was rewatching this episode, because it's been a while since I've seen any Angel, is I forgot just how late in the series everything happens with her. I really thought, for some reason, I thought that Illyria was a lot more in the series. But yeah, I like the fact that he's trying to talk some sense into her. He doesn't know what the plan actually is. And he's trying. Like he's always the thing about Angel, his growth in the whole between Buffy and Angel is that he is trying. He is run by his humanity. He wants to try to stop Illyria from hurting any more people, but she's this god king who it's difficult to reason with, and they're still looking at her as if she's Fred, and she absolutely hates that.
Yeah, pretty much everybody except Spike is still sees Fred, and Spike's the only one that we saw earlier in this episode has really got that full disconnect where he basically only sees and senses Illyria and has completely removed her from Fred.
Yeah, and it's easier for him. Like he's always been the one to be able to put a distance between himself and whatever the emotional problem is that everybody else is dealing with.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that you mentioned that it felt like Illyria was around longer, because everybody that I've talked to for this episode has more or less the same feeling, because Illyria is such a big presence in this season and this show. And yeah, she's only around for like 5 or 6 episodes, which it's crazy to think about that.
Yeah, because I went back and looked at the episode guide, and like realizing exactly when she came in this season. It just and also you're so used to seeing images of Illyria everywhere, and there's such a connection between Illyria and Fred that it really does feel like, and it's one of those things where, especially since we're talking about time, like time just is so weird with our memories, especially with TV shows, of when things happen and how long storylines are going on.
Yeah. And I like this interaction where Illyria says, you asked me to allow you to murder me. And she turned, and I also think it's interesting whenever she asked that, like this has been a discussion between Illyria and Angel, but whenever she asked that question, I'm pretty sure based on the eye lines that she turns and speaks to Wesley when she says that.
Yeah. And because everything is still fresh in, Wesley, and with her trying to kill her before, the connection between Fred and Wesley is still there. And even though Fred is gone, Illyria recognizes that.
Yeah, and then of course we get Spike's response, which is great, whenever he just says, it's not murder if you say yes. And then Wesley drops a different kind of bomb. This is when he reveals that the Mutari generator isn't supposed to kill her. It's just supposed to draw her power away. And we get a little bit more about how Wesley has come to accept Illyria's invasion of Fred's body. But Illyria at this point isn't willing to give up her power in exchange for her life, as well as the lives of everybody in a roughly 20-mile radius, give or take, based on Wesley's calculations. And Angel makes a point to tell her that Illyria can be who she is by giving up who she was. And then there's another great line whenever she says, I blame this on the weakness of your species. And Wesley replies, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so the humans in this show, and between this and Buffy, are just so used to being told that they really have no place dealing with higher powers, but they keep doing it anyway.
And there is like just this brief little fight between them, and Illyria once again showcases her time slowing powers until she gets hit with another one of the time cramps, which stops everything. And once again, we get this nice little special effect with her cheek that starts cracking with the blue lights behind it, which I still think that this part of it looks really great.
Yeah, I like that because I do have always loved the look of Illyria with the makeup and the hair and the eyes, and then adding in with the effect with the just the way that the effect is that her face is cracking and the light is coming out. It just makes the whole thing look even cooler.
Yeah, and it really works with the way that they've been explaining it with, because it's like Illyria's power is so great that it's literally coming out of her skin.
Yeah, because she says her power is too great for the bag of sticks.
Yeah. And then she just slumps, and she pretty much, stays in that same position for the rest of this scene, as Wesley and Angel go into the side room to have this, which it's a really nice, quiet little scene. And it feels like it's been a while since Angel really gets to be like a friend, because he has been in this CEO position and this leader position even more so than he was in the previous seasons. And he really is like being a friend to Wesley, giving him advice and sharing his concerns about Wesley's obsession with Illyria, even though Wesley assures him that he's not in love with this thing. And he even calls, he doesn't call Illyria her, he calls her this thing. But he says that he just thinks that he needs it right now. And again, a nice, a great Buffy Angel bit of dialogue with Angel's response of, yeah, that's just weird.
Yeah. And I, like you said, it's a great scene because these shows really have always been about the relationships of the characters with each other and their friendships. And when you think about where Wesley and Angel started, even just at the beginning of this series, to get to where they are here, seeing Wesley, how he is now from where we last left him in Buffy, it's heartbreaking. It's, he's had to really grow up, even though he was a full adult when we first meet him. He's completely seeing this whole new world outside of what the council taught him, and how you have to do things differently, that there really are no rules. So seeing the two of them being able to just be friends, and also thinking about we've only got 3 more episodes left to the end of the series. Things are going to be going downhill soon.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting you bringing up maturity in terms of Wesley's story arc, because he does come into Buffy as an adult, but in a way, I hadn't really thought about it before, but in a way he comes into that show as basically like a man-child.
Yeah.
Because he's very, like, he's book smart about all the demons and stuff, but he doesn't have any, like, he's very naive.
Exactly. Yeah, because Giles had that time with Buffy until he came in to realize that this is a different type of Slayer. This is a different type of situation than we've ever seen before. So we have to adapt to her. Wesley was still in that council mindset of your Watcher's law, the Watcher's law. We got to follow the rules. But then, yeah, he went from being, like you said, a man-child to having to grow up. And it is a little heartbreaking because Wesley was like a big puppy dog at the beginning, and now he's seen just how awful everything is.
Yeah, like it's so crazy. Like I haven't done like a full rewatch. I just, in a while, I just rewatched Buffy season 6 and Angel season 5. And both of those are are pretty great. Buffy season 6 was a lot better than I had remembered it. There was really just one episode, which I won't talk about again because I mentioned it enough in the, in talking about life serial. But there was just one episode that I really hated, but all the rest of the season I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Thinking we just recorded Wild at Heart, Oz's last episode for the Watchers Diaries. So, we're starting to get into a lot more of everybody growing up and everybody dealing with a lot more life stuff. And that's why I was so, having watched it as a teenager, I basically was in the same position as these poor teenage girls when they were going through all their stuff. And then Angel was more how I felt as a grown-up.
Yeah. Angel is, even though Angel as a character is over 100 years old, like Angel as the series does feel like kind of a young adult. Like he's roughly the same age as David Boreanaz was, would be like late 20s. It feels like that type of character in Angel, and especially whenever you throw in Cordelia, who, to add in that young adult fresh out of high school, even though she does feel much closer to Charisma Carpenter's age whenever she transitions into Angel. It's like she goes from being a senior in high school in Buffy to being 25 years old in Angel.
Yeah, because we always talk about how sometimes you can tell Charisma is so much older than everybody else. Like, she feels like she should be a young teacher at the school instead of a high schooler, but things feel more natural for Charisma once she moves over to Angel.
And then as Angel leaves this conversation, we get another line of him saying under his breath, which is repeating something that that Illyria said to him, where he says, "Serve no master but your ambition." And we discussed this concept a little bit in the last episode, but I think that this idea is a nice little misdirect, especially as we're getting through to these last few episodes before Angel reveals his true plan to take down the Circle of the Black Thorn. And at this point, they're really making the audiences think that Angel is being, or has been, corrupted by being the CEO of Wolfram and Hart.
Yeah, it's also a testament to just how far the writing of the series came and how well David plays it. Yeah, you do think that he's betraying his friends, and especially like you hear the conversation with him and Illyria about him being in, this is his kingdom. And it is fantastic because he needs to keep things close to his chest. You really don't know who you can trust. His friends may have been corrupted. He has to lead things the way he feels just to make sure that he can accomplish what he wants to accomplish to bring it down at the end.
Right. And then as we finish up this, like, Illyria's section of this episode, we follow up with the B plot with the Fell Brethren, and it cuts in with a very heated argument between Gunn and one of the Fell Brethren about the unborn child, and Gunn is very clearly on the side of the mother, even though the Fell Brethren are technically their client. And off to the side, Hamilton is being this, the perfect little sleazeball as he is making nice with the other two members, but at the same time, he's also deflecting the blame directly to Angel as he walks through the elevator.
Yeah, Adam Baldwin plays that very well.
Yeah, do I know you didn't like do a full rewatch of like season 5, but
Mhm.
do you have a preference between him and Eve? Like what you remember of Eve as the senior partner liaison?
Oh, yeah, it has been a while. Like I I do like Adam Baldwin. Just that like we said, the sleaze. He has that corporate representative type. Like you can just see the evil and the darkness radiating off of him, but he's also a very realistic character in the way like you could see this person being a real person in corporate America trying to weasel his way and trying to make nice with the bad guys.
Yeah, he's very like by the books, by the numbers, and letter of the law type
Hmm.
of thing.
That's why he was always good at he's played so many military characters. Like he just has this way that it works perfectly.
Hmm. And as Angel comes into this scene, this this really feels like a character change for him because he really acts. It's almost like he turned a switch,
Hmm.
and he's acting like a very different character as he takes the contract and calmly tells Gunn that the baby belongs to the Fell. Uh, friendly leads the Fell Brethren into the office to finalize the contract. And then the episode ends with Gunn asking Angel, "What are you doing?" And Angel replies with, "What we're supposed to be doing, serving our clients." And he also says this by, you can tell that he's telling that to Gunn, but he's also telling it to Hamilton, who's just
Hmm.
like behind Gunn's shoulders. And
And
then we have this,
The look on Gunn's face when Angel does that is a great
mm,
bit of subtle acting.
yeah, especially whenever he's still in his like basically civilian clothes, wearing
Hmm.
this hoodie and jeans instead of the typical three-piece suits that he's normally wearing. And Angel is kind of, I mean, he's wearing his typical like leather trench coats, but he has the button-down shirt underneath it, so it's semi-formal, I guess.
Hmm. Vampire formal.
Yeah. And but yeah, it's very different from the Gun that we had been seeing in the very polished suit, and then we have the very sharp cut to credits, the almost like the cliffhanger ending in a
Hmm.
way, which I love. I do love that. And I remember watching it and just being like, wow, that's a lot of these episodes just knew the right place to end.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great. It's a very sharp. You know that there's more coming, but this is what you're getting for now.
Hmm. It's almost like, they hit you with the gut punch, and then
Hmm.
they cut you off.
Yeah. You don't
It's
get any.
all,
You don't really get any time to react. They just hit you with the credits.
yeah. It's almost like a sucker punch. They like sucker punch and then run away.
Yeah.
But and that's the end of this episode. So what did you think about Time Bomb overall, and like the how it fits into this last season? Because this does have a lot of baggage coming into this season, being near the end of it.
Yeah, I thought it's a great way to basically wrap up that part of everything that was hanging over until this episode. Like we said, it was Illyria was only around for a few episodes, and there's still, now they have a place that they're going to go. Like we said, Angel is working toward the finale, trying to make everybody think that he's turned, but he's working from the inside. It's wrapping up, quite a few ends before we have to work on the rest of it. We got Gunn back in this episode, and
Hmm.
now we're just moving on to the finale.
Yeah, and I am going to be covering the finale because I think that there's so much to talk about with that episode and how it wraps up so many different things. And I'm probably going to try and reread some of the After the Fall comics to bring that up in that episode as well. So I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today. It was a lot of fun talking with you about the end of Time Bomb and finishing up this part of this season of It's Time to Rewind here. But for anybody else that hasn't heard you before, why don't you go ahead and take a minute to talk about the Watchers Diaries and anywhere else that you can be found online.
Sure. The Watchers Diaries. We are a weekly podcast. My best friend Mary and I are going through every episode. We occasionally do some book club episodes. We've been doing a series called the Demon Hunting Soccer Mom series by Julie Kenner. But you can find us on all of the apps. We are the Watchers Diaries. We are on Twitter at Diaries Watchers. We're on Instagram, Watchers Diaries, and I am at the Coffee Frog. If you want to check me out, I mostly post pictures of my dog and my 10-year-old. So that's pretty much it for us.
All right. And as always, I am Bubbawheat, and you can find me on Twitter where I'm at Bubbawheat. You can find this show, It's Time to Rewind, on Anchor.fm, as well as anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. We also have a Facebook group, It's Time to Rewind, a time loop group. You can join that and discuss episodes as they come out, as well as have discussions about time loop movies and TV episodes in general. And after this, I do have a few more episodes of Angel that I'm going to be covering in their entireties. I am going to be covering, Smile Time, the puppet episode, of course. That should be next. And then I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning to cover the pilot with someone who has never seen any of Buffy or Angel. And then I'm going to be covering the finale. So going from the beginning all the way to the ending, and then going to finish up this entire season by going back to the very beginning and talking about the Buffy movie. And then I've announced it on the Facebook page already, but the next season will be Memento. And hopefully I'll be starting episodes coming out in April and just giving, about a month or so hiatus in between seasons. So until next time, grr.
Arg.
Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Time doesn't exist until it cracks apart. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first. You were pretty at night. Slew the white-haired one first.